Hey, these are my answers to the questions that isn't that are related to week 4. Uh, there are a lot of questions that are actually related as well to week 5, which is a Spark. So what are the reasons why we would just use a Spark instead of DBT? Both the Spark and DBT did transformations. What are the differences? Is it possible to combine DBT and Spark? Before feeding the data into Spark, can we perform the transformations needed via SQL using BigQuery or DBT rather than Athena? The first thing to know is that you can use DBT with a Spark. So there's an adapter for Spark that you can use. You probably saw it when you created your project in DBT Cloud, and then for core you need to install it's a different adapter that you install. Instead of DBT BigQuery, you do DBT Spark. Which means that the limits that that DBT has for the transformation are really the limits of the data platform that you're connecting it to. So the question is not, it's more Spark versus BigQuery rather than DBT versus Spark. And then the other question is the Spark with DBT or not. That one can also think about that with any of these platforms. So why we chose to include both. These are alternative ways of transforming, and as a data engineer, you're going to find both setups in a company. So there are companies that you may work at that have all transformations done with Spark. Other companies have all of the transformations done in BigQuery. The same, like, or just Snowflake or just Redshift. Some companies have both BigQuery and Snowflake and Spark, for example. The main difference really, it will depend on the use case of your data. Spark is usually used for higher loads of data or a need for streaming as well. That's where normally one would use a Spark. It also depends on the data engineering team. And then BigQuery is going to perform better in big data sets still, but smaller than Spark, and batch processing. I would still recommend to read more about both. One of the other questions is, can you explain the possible pipeline phase if we can use DBT in the final project? And going back to Spark versus DBT, it's really up to you. You can use whatever you want. And the possible pipeline phase would look like a similar, if you wanted to use DBT, it would look a similar way like your project looked until week 4. So you would use whatever scheduler you want. So something that you could use Airflow, you could use Prefect to load the data that you chose to the buckets, and then move them to BigQuery. Once you have them in BigQuery, you would use DBT to do the transformation like you use in week 4, and then you would use any analytics tool of your choice. So we saw database in Looker Studio. Can you show how to run DBT from subfolder of the repo? I think this one was solved. This already has a few days. I know that I was in one of those threads. But yes, this is my account. I am here under account settings and under projects, and you're going to see that I actually have the same account as you all have. It's just that the videos have 1 year old, and DBT changed a lot since then. You're going to see that when I go through one of my projects, I have this project subdirectory where you can write the directory. So if you don't write anything, then your project, when you go to develop, is going to start in here. And the same when you're running shops, it's going to start always in the root. This is my repository that has nothing but week 4. If instead I have this other one here, if instead you have something like the full repository of the data engineering Zoomcamp, then I can put here, right, the project subdirectory, and my DBT project will start after all of this. That is where it's going to go and look for my code. If you're using the terminal, then it's as simple as locating yourself where your project YML is. This is the same for here, by the way. Here is my project YML under this directory. You locate yourself with either CD if you're using Linux or Mac, or dir if you're using Windows, and you execute DVD from there. It's going to go and look for the project YML and then execute from there. The last question, I found it, let's see, week 4. No. And here, the last question is this one. In real life, each environment has own warehouse. Dev, station, prod. How to keep in sync. Any articles on a typical workday from feature, branch to merge. I don't have, that I know of, a good article where it would explain this. And in my experience, this depends a lot on the company and on the person setting up. I've worked in companies where we had completely separate accounts for each stage. So we would have something like for development, one completely separate account for something like QA, and one completely different for prod. And then we would have something like a syncing between, so cloning production into our QA environment and our dev environment, for example. Normally the architecture I would see the most with DBT is you would have one warehouse where you would have multiple, in BigQuery it's called datasets. In others like Postgres, Redshift, and Snowflake, it's called schemas. Or you would have one warehouse with separate databases. And then you could use all of the data warehouses tend to have some way of doing tasks where you can copy. So for example, doing something like zero copy clones where you can move the data from production to dev. Other topic that is super related to this question, in my opinion, is CI/CD. We didn't went through CI, but normally, and I would recommend this one and this blog as well in here. What you could do as well is on merge. So you would normally open a pull request, and you would have in there something like a CI check that would make sure that the code that you're trying to merge works. And then you could run something like a dbt cloud or merge, like a shove in here or on a pull request. And that is also another way where all of these stages would communicate. I think that's all of the questions. So good luck with the rest of the course.